We're Wendy and Howard, the Sojourn Seniors, traveling the world, and we're here to show you what we've done. Hey, Howard.
Hey, Wendy.
Here we are, the Sojourn Seniors, and we'd like to talk a little bit about the trip we just took, and that was a day trip to the Valley of Fire.
At a state park, which is about 40 minutes or so north of the Las Vegas Strip up Interstate 15. And we picked a beautiful day. It was bright and sunny, and it was windy.
So we did some hiking, we did lots of driving through the park, and it was a super bloom going on. So it was pretty spectacular to see it. Plus it looks like a lunar landscape up there too.
In fact, the first sight that we saw were petrified logs. You didn't really know what to expect, and it wasn't until we came down over the hill and saw those fenced-in areas. I think they had 3 or 4 log areas, and each log area was enclosed in a metal fencing to keep people, I guess, from climbing over and otherwise doing damage to the actual petrified logs. So it's difficult to tell how big they were. If I had to guess, they were probably somewhere in the 36 to 48 inch range in diameter. So we're not talking giant sequoias, but we're not talking about broomstick handles either.
Right.
Yeah. And the thing that was fascinating about them is that they were dated as 150 million years old, dating back to what they called the age of reptile. And when I read age of reptiles, I thought, And I remember just looking around thinking, how fast can we run?
We then drove on, and there's a nice visitor center, beautiful flora around the visitor center as well. It was amazing. I mean, it really, the red rocks are just spectacular. And it's not any wonder that 39 TV and movies have been filmed out there.
I think the second site that we saw was sort of a ridge, an outlook. Very short walk from the parking lot itself. And I remember we're walking towards it. And as you're walking towards the point where you actually have this wonderful panoramic view, it's getting narrower and narrower and narrower. And
what could possibly go wrong?
Because the wind, at that time of day, it was so strong that if you were wearing a jacket and you happened to raise your arms, you could turn into a sail and almost fly away. But we stood in that overlook, and it was just beautiful. And they've had an awful lot of rain and snow in Las Vegas this winter, particularly at the end of winter, beginning of spring. And so the wildflowers out there are in full bloom. And not only are they beautiful, but their scent is just overwhelmingly lovely. I kept thinking that I was being followed, or I was following people who had just taken a bath.
Yeah. And they're the white desert poppies that mostly we were seeing. Cacti were blooming as well. So the red blooms on the cacti were pretty spectacular. And as we drove along, there was also a bighorn sheep lying out on one of the rock ledges, just sort of watching everyone driving by.
So the first hike we went on was, what was that called again?
The Fire Wave.
The Fire Wave. Oh, it's just beautiful. You see all these rock formations with alternating, undulating, different colors. The purples,
it does look like
ochres.
waves.
I mean, it's in fact, it can be a little bit off-putting to walk on, because all the wave action that's actually built into the rock would make you think that the rocks themselves are moving, that it's an unstable surface to walk on, and of course it's not. So
it's loose sand and small gravel, but it's a nice trail to follow down.
Now we walk with alpine walking sticks, which is a good idea, especially at our age. But there were a lot of folks out there who weren't using walking sticks, and the one thing I heard almost everyone say, boy, it would have been a good idea if they had hiking poles.
Right.
So if it's something that you're interested in doing, you might want to give some consideration to even an inexpensive pair of hiking poles. We also were wearing our hiking boots.
And I'm very glad I had my boots on,
It's true.
because there were some real ankle twisters out there.
But this walk was interesting because Wendy had said that it was about 1.5 miles. Now, what was less clear is whether it was a loop walk, you know, the sort of thing where you just...
I didn't interpret the directions correctly where it said in and out.
Yes.
I didn't recognize that in and out meant you went so far, turned around, and came back.
Exactly.
Duh.
So we did about 3/4 of a mile, and you come to cross the road that we drove on to get to the point of departure in our hike. And at that point, you could have turned around and gone back, and that would, as it turns out, been the actual wave walk. But we decided to march on, and we saw a sign which said moderately strenuous. Now, they were talking about the part of the walk that we had just come on rather than what was ahead of us.
Surprise.
Yes. It turns out it was really very strenuous, especially since it was the first serious walk of the year for us. You know, once we've been doing this several times, sometimes several times a week as we go through the summer months, you know, you just get into hiking mode and you know how to better pace yourself. This one had some rather interesting gymnastic turns and twists and things you had to do.
Climbing over things and squeezing in between and underneath. But the real rookie mistake, not taking my water, which, by the way, that trail, as well as the fire wave between June and August, is shut down.
And for good reason.
Because it gets so hot. Now, it was 71 degrees when we were there, and there was that wind blowing. However, the reflections from the rocks and the heat that builds up from the rock really, we really felt it.
But you'll see from some of the photos and the videos that we're streaming here as you watch, that we had some outcroppings that we would walk through. And typically when you're sort of walking in a little alcove like that, you've got lots of room or enough room on either side. You don't have to duck the rock that's overhead. You don't have to twist and turn and contort yourself to manage to make forward progress. This, I swear, was set up by nature to actually test your mettle, because we were constantly not just moving forward, but twisting, turning, contorting, climbing, descending. I mean, you were always in some sort of motion besides forward progress.
So that first half, the fire wave, fantastic.
It was.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Depending on your conditioning as to whether you want to cross the road and take the other half, which I might also point out is uphill the whole way.
Yeah.
In fact, the elevation gain is such that my Apple Watch told me that I had gained 20 flights of stairs, which I hadn't gone up any stairs.
Yeah, it said we had an elevation gain of about 300 feet on that second half of that walk, because where we crossed the road, which is where the first walk ended and the second walk began, that was the low point. And most of that gain took place in the last third of that walk, maybe even the last quarter.
Now, we will be going back because there's another trail that we didn't take yet that we will return to. There are remains of a movie set there. So definitely a place to go and check out. The Valley of Fire, the Nevada State Park, 1 hour from Las Vegas, is well worth the trip. It's beautiful. It's exciting to see it because it's not like anything you've actually seen before. One of the things that surprised me when we were out hiking, we were two of the few people who had hats on.
Yes.
Wear a hat.
And you want to make sure you take your sunscreen, that's for sure. When the wind was blowing, because of the sand, it had this wonderful abrasive effect on your legs and your knees and your thighs if they were uncovered. Because I had really lathered up in skin cream and all sorts of stuff before we left. But by the time we got home in the afternoon, it looked as if I had been peeling for weeks.
Yeah, that was sort of funny.
Yeah.
And wear sunglasses because it can be glary.
Yeah. You don't think of sun reflecting off of your sort of ground when you're walking, but this does.
And for those of you who are campers, there are 2 campsites there right in the park, And there, outside the park, there was a lot of boondocking going on.
A lot of dispersed camping. The Bureau of Land Management, BLM, owns most of the land surrounding this state park. And then, of course, it backs up to what is it? It's Zion, I guess it is.
Right.
So you're in Park Central. Once you're in that part of the world. BLM does most of the dispersed parking. Zion is sort of a challenge if you're trying to go ahead and find camping.
Right.
Camping, I meant to say, rather than parking.
I mean, we've been there a few times before, and I'm looking forward to going back again because I've read more about it. I've looked at more things. So the whole notion of going back, even though we've been there, is really exciting.
Your national park passes are not honored there. So you will have to have a state park license. Then you need to know it's a fairly low-cost endeavor. We paid, what was it, $10 for a car.
Right.
So it wasn't per person. So this is the sort of thing that if you have a lot of folks with you, $10, you're in and out. You don't really have to worry too much about stiff fees. It's not like some of the national parks have gotten fairly pricey lately.
I would recommend going early.
I know, we're going back.
We're going back, but we're taking water this time.
Yes, we are. And we'll be in a little better shape too.
Yes, we will.
So
maybe we'll take some snacks too.
yes. Snacks wouldn't have been a bad idea.
Right?
Okay.
So we'll see you out there.
Yes. So this is Howard and
Wendy
saying goodbye.